So my first question for Sam is a lot of the students go away on these, the AA programs abroad. So in the context of everything you're talking about, how might they see cities differently, or how might they travel with regard to what you're talking about?
Well, I can't actually answer that question, I think. Because I think, so what I was interested in here was that I think most of the times, I think the idea of travel, or the idea of context, or the idea of geography is really used as a kind of shield, or as a kind of reflection in terms of what people actually want to find, right? So, in fact, I think it's almost counterintuitive or contradictory to our assumption that we go somewhere to learn something. And I think in all of these, I think at least in the 3 examples I gave, I think that relationship is in fact, I think, much more complicated. But I think also much more interesting, right? Because I think that's precisely that we don't go somewhere else to actually learn anything from it, right? But what does that mean? You know, what's the challenges come out of it now? I think with this sort of global schools that the AA runs, again, right, I don't think these programs are set out necessarily to actually engage with the other contexts, right? In some ways, I guess, the intention of a lot of these programs are, in fact, to actually bring a little parts of the AA over there. If it does that successfully, I don't know.
Marketing exercise? Marketing exercise.
I couldn't possibly comment.
Okay. So I guess one of the things that perhaps students might get out of it, whether it has anything to do with the city, is the idea that just seeing people do things in different ways, or people having different ideas. A big part of architecture is having empathy for the client, and perhaps just being somewhere else and just seeing how people travel and seeing how people eat or communicate. Maybe it's just a lesson of observing that they can bring back, and kind of at the same time understand having rapport with different kinds of people. Maybe that is a lesson. So maybe it's about the people as opposed to the city itself.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't really, I think, talking about the client relationship, right? I think it's not about commissioning, but I think sort of the relationship of what kind of learning actually takes place. And I think sort of Kohlhaas's response is symptomatic to that kind of attitude, right? To go somewhere else, to be so surprised that in fact these cities function in similar ways to the ones he's familiar with, right? Actually reflects just simply on him, I think, much more than what he would ever gain from that. And this is after 3 years of so-called research, right? And I think that's actually something that I think struck me, sort of looking at this, but also, I think more subtler ways, I guess, sort of what happens with learning from Las Vegas.
So in terms of new forms of travel, so for example, Virgin Atlantic is looking at traveling through virtual reality and sort of creating holidays and experiences in this way. What do you think that Kohlhaas might say about that, and about experiencing a city in that way?
That's very hard for me to answer. I'm not Kohlhaas. I wouldn't know really.
But in terms of kind of his perception of how he views cities, or would you have any? My take would be, I think Kohlhaas's understanding of other cities is fairly naive, right? And I think it's very much, that's what I was kind of saying, but I think it's mainly framed by his own desires rather than, I think, to understand any of these cities. And I think that's why it's also very revealing that at the end he said, okay, would you actually know what to do with the cities? Well, since you've looked at it for 3 years now, of course his reply is, no, because I would have to look differently at it. Right? I think that tells you a lot about the attitude of going to a place, right? Because the research was never about Lagos. I think the research was, always about kind of finding certain models that would reaffirm his ideas of what a city should be. Right? And I think, of course, in that case, it was the kind of generic city but it's not just generic, it's also self-organizing. So I guess my last question to you is, do you feel like you've ever learned anything from traveling to a city?
yeah, that the food is better in some places than others.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.